Just to go through things, we have received the preliminary information from Bay County, and that number is what is incorporated at the very top, you know, the general fund revenue of the $3.4 million. So that's straight from Bay County.
That's the DR4, that's, we received, you said preliminary, but have we received?
It's-
It is the final.
it is
Okay,
final.
DR4,
Yeah.
And
all right.
just to help myself, we look back at the one that we had for last year, and it's 3.6 million, so it actually has gone down a little bit. So starting off from there, you start to work down and look at elected officials and admin, and those are our expenses. When you compare this to last year, and when you go through each one of the worksheets, it has a comparable of last year. You're gonna notice that there are differences. When you add all of it up and get down to the bottom, there really shouldn't be those big of differences within each one of the categories, because we really haven't increased a whole lot of cost. What we've done is we've allocated people into the right locations. To give you an idea, you know, myself, I'm paid for through the admin side, but there's a piece of me that gets paid in water and sewer and sanitary. So when you look at city administrator, I'm only $53,000, which would be not quite what I make. So I just want to be able to give you an understanding of, these funds aren't 100% easy to read. It's a little more complicated than that. So again, my fund is also part of the water and sewer, so when you get into the salaries for those sides, there'll be percentages of myself, of Monique, of Lindsay, of Mary. All four of us are shared throughout all of the departments because we're part of the admin. We do not have a final audit. We probably won't have a final audit until October timeframe, even though it's supposed to be done no later than August, September. We've picked up something that has just been scrambled, and that scramble is taking us a bit more time. We have a new auditor that's helping us go through the process, but we also have lost all the connectivity from Debbie to Adrian to Jenny to now Monique. So please forgive us for our lack of timeliness on getting things done, but everybody also understands that we've gone through a storm and we've gone through a lot of transition. All that being said, Monique has done a great job for having been here for 7 weeks, somewhere in that range. And again, she picked up where she was not handed the baton. The baton was thrown away from her, and she ran over and grabbed the baton, and now she's running and trying to catch up. That being said, ideally, you have the audit complete so that you build your new year off of what you performed to the prior year. We don't have that luxury. What we've done, and I use the word we very broadly, it means Carter and Keith, and you know, in conjunction with conversations, what we've done is we've looked at 2017, 2018, 2019, 2000. We've looked at all of those budgets. We've tracked how they're performing. Again, we know that water and sewer, we can pull those bills and we can see where they are. But when we look at 2018, that was a complete year. I mean, the hurricane hit late enough in the year that it should not have had a major impact on the revenue or the cost. If it had hit in June or July or August, we couldn't count on that year as any kind of a scale. Unfortunately, 2018's audit, 18-19's audit, I'm sorry, 17-18, which is when the storm hit, I don't completely trust because, again, that audit has some questionable components to it based on questions that Keith has had. So we are reaching back and we're interpolating between 4 years. This is the effort that Monique has put together. On the revenue side, it is a whole heck of a lot easier to track because revenue, you know, we can put our fingers and hands on all those things. Where it gets more complex is on the departments, because my understanding was when Philip ran Public Works, he merged everything together and just used a budget, and there was no separation between street and storm and water and sewer and parks. It was all just, all the trucks were there and they got dealt with there, and all the electricity was there and it got dealt with there. In our New Year's budget, every department will be working off of a true budget. They will be tracking a true budget. So if the street department has $20,000, if they hit that $20,000 mark, they won't be able to spend another dime. They will have to go through the process, which will mean it will have to come back to council to get anything approved over $20,000, because that is their budget. They have a goal to work off of. Everything will be coded off of those code numbers, and allow us to truly take that budget, perform to that budget, so that next year, because truth be told, this budget is so that we can do something even better next year, because we will have a budget that we maintained, monitored, and tracked. This is an effort to divvy everything up in the right locations. I will propose a couple of changes if you all will consider them. Right now, we have city administrator, city clerk, and legal all as completely separate budgets. I would propose that we have city admin, city clerk, legal, and Mary all in one budget that is called administration. It has all of our salaries, it has all of our workman's comp, all those things there. It has, you know, the printer that all of us share versus it tracking in, you know, 4 separate locations. These are some basic things that I think will be helpful so that we can track things. Is if you break it into too much detail from the very beginning, it means a whole lot less. So that's really the biggest change that I would like to propose to the council for a change in here. The other one for your consideration is the canal and Parks and Rec. Again, those personnel interchange with one another. If we wanted to combine those two into one budget, it would help us, again, just create that other issue. The hurricane budget is something that, now that we have our program upgraded so that we can track every single project, when the funds come in, it will almost act like a category of itself, and it'll track the budget for its salaries, its legal, its engineering, its construction, its maintenance, and things like that. So that's all big picture stuff. On the revenue side, there has been a lot of input from all of the employees within the departments. I just can't breathe and not fog up my glasses on this thing. When you go to the very first spreadsheet side, which is going to be very hard to read, when you look at that, it shows your ad valorem, and it shows it tracking from year to year to year, and it has our proposed on the far end, and then at the very end, it shows a difference. When you track that down, you can see that from 2020 to 2012, the basic difference is only $300,000, so it's not a major difference when you take into account local option fuel tax, electrical franchise, natural gas, utility water, utility gas, and communications.
You meant 2021? You
Pardon?
said 2012.
I'm sorry, from 2020 to 2021.
Yeah.
My dyslexia kicked in, sorry. The next group down are relatively minor costs with building permits and golf carts and fishing licenses and things like that. And then you get down below that point, and here's some places where we will be adding things. And again, we've got to get some of the audit work taken care of in order to fill these spaces in, because where you see FEMA even on 2019 and on 2020, there were funds that came in from FEMA that will need to be put in those locations along with the follow-ups. And in turn, when you get into the FEMA, there's the match monies that we will be responsible for. So again, it's hard to say that when we receive $51 million, that there's some component of that the city matches, and this is where those things will go. You go down to the bottom and the half-cent sales tax, you can see how 2016, 17, and 18 basically are slight increases, and then for 2019, they projected an increase, but nobody took into account COVID. So again, this is what was adopted. Chances are some of these numbers are going to come down for the 2019 budget because of what we are going through. I will venture to say that any monies that come from the state, any monies that come from spending, will be adjusted in that 2019. Again, the reason I say that is that's what will be in our audit that will be represented, which will then help us create the next budget. And again, it's awkward, but it's just information that everybody needs to be aware of. The following sheet is a good bit smaller number, so not a whole lot of time to look at on those. One of the things that to look at is really the bottom line of 2020 versus 2021. We've got $3,300,000 in 2020, and then $3,400,000 for 2021, and that is estimated. And I will venture to say that Monique probably estimated those down a little bit, knowing that COVID has been here versus the person that did the 2020 budget had no idea that there would be a COVID. So if you look at her number, she's going to be on the conservative side for revenue coming in. When you look at the next sheet, it's the elected officials, and for some reason in 2020 you had an extra council member. Monique caught that, and we don't have 6 council members, so she only budgeted for the
Well, now, wouldn't that be Al's salary being extra?
Monique, did you account for the mayor's salary being?
He's right.
Oh. Good catch.
Okay, mark that up now.
Again, but give her credit for counting and doing the multiplication. She just didn't know that the mayor got a little more. So good catch, Bobby. Appreciate that. And then that will have a trickle down, so it'll increase these dollars. Insurance. She is carrying insurance here because there is a liability insurance that we carry for all the council members that was not represented in past years. Travel's the same, education's the same, so that's where you see that slight increase on that line item. The city administrator, again, 2020 shows me at 63, 2021 she gets me all the way down to 36, but hopefully all that is because I've been reallocated over a couple different categories. It shows my travel down to $1,000. I really tend not to do a whole lot of travel, and my the things that I do, I tend to do online, so it doesn't cost the city much. Communication is tracking, insurance. Question the I'm sorry, that's that is insurance. The insurance at this point in time, the city is not carrying my insurance because I paid my insurance through where I retired from. It actually saves the city money. If the city would be so gracious as to pay me the insurance that they're saving, I would greatly appreciate it, but I currently pay my insurance through my retirement to carry that. Office supplies, reduced office supplies, books and things. So this budget really doesn't have a whole lot of change other than redistributing where my funds come from.
What is that insurance line? Is that health insurance?
Health insurance.
Health insurance.
Yes, sir.
But I currently don't have health insurance, so she's got it in there as a place filler if and when somebody else comes aboard.
So, if you didn't have it, it would cost us
Correct,
more.
put it this way, if I didn't have insurance through, my retirement, y'all would be paying $575 per month for my insurance. I'm paying $600 for my insurance, but
Okay.
it would require y'all changing my contract, which I would appreciate, but we're not talking about that right now. The city,
Well, before you leave that, why is there, then there shouldn't be, in the proposed budget, that's gonna go to zero? Under
Yeah.
insurance?
truth be told, it's not a bad thing to keep as a placeholder, so that if there's a future person that comes in, you've actually allocated for it, and it's not expended, but it could go to zero.
Your health insurance is zero on the,
Yeah, insurance at the bottom is your liability insurance for working here. Your health insurance at the top is 2,300. Your 4,500 is your liability insurance.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I was confused for a second.
Well, I'm looking
And
at,
I-
I'm looking
I
at a line that
stand-
says
I stand corrected,
1475.
yeah.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at a line that says $1,475.50.
That's liability.
That's
That's
liability
liability.
insurance.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
my health insurance is zero.
Is
now.
zero.
So if you guys, there's 3 different insurance. There is the workers' comp, there is health insurance, and then there's the liability.
Yeah,
And, insurance that I get on number 4,500, that will include liability, automobile, infrastructure, and that's why it's not a personal cost.
Yeah, and I should have caught that, but because that's below the line, that's operating cost, not salary.
now is that 1475.50 liability, is that broken up?
It is based on the salary that the person made.
And there's gonna be some liability insurance on other line items, right?
Yes.
For other,
So for example,
okay.
when you guys touch into like the water department, it's gonna be like a bigger figure because it's gonna have the liability insurance, it's gonna have automobile, it's gonna have the
I got
infrastructure.
This includes the building that I work out of.
okay, let me ask you, when you delegate, if that's the right word, or assign different percentages to different, like Mario salary.
The distribution.
Yeah, what percentages did you use?
The percentage that I use for the salary is the one that I came here and saw, which is 40% for his city administration, that is part of the general fund. 20% in water, 20% sanitation, 20%
Okay.
sewer.
So you used what had been being used?
Yes.
It had just not been implemented that way in the prior budget. For some reason, I don't know why.
I don't know, that's surprising.
And then similarly
Okay.
with the city clerk, you can see that she does have health insurance and what the cost of health insurance is. You can see the salary.
Yeah,
And again, she's split up in probably that same format, 40, 20, 20.
Yes, the same format.
It carries all the personnel costs, there's really not a whole lot of difference other than the fact that Jenny made more than Lindsay. So that tracks across the board. The travel, we reduced the travel by $1,000, I think $1,000 is probably a safe number. Insurance for operating is the building insurance, office supplies, and then books and publications, so not a whole lot of change in that category. When you look at legal, I will venture to say that these numbers will probably get tweaked, and a good bit of that is because of the hurricane. We have been using Nick a good bit more than we had in the past, and a good bit of that is because of the things going on, and then even with COVID, there'll probably be a couple of tweaks there. So as we adopt our 2020, which will be the audit, we may make some changes to the 2021. Planning and zoning, this is basically, we outsource this, so this is based on performance. Again, as this audit comes through, I'd imagine that this $12,800 is a good bit lower. Yeah, it should track about the same, truth be told. So again, I think her 10,450 should be fine. Because we don't have any increases in that, this is just the building side of it and insurance side of it for them using the space that we have, so it shouldn't be a big difference. General government, here's one of those places where you'll notice, just looking across the top, you can see where in 2018, salaries was almost 70,000, in 19 it was 80,000, 2020 it was 57,000, and here it's 39,000. This is part of that true up of putting people in the right locations. Because otherwise we wouldn't be reducing salaries by that volume. And then the operating side of that, they're really,
So you're doing this now for, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna ask as we move along. So we took the admin positions, are you saying now, under general government, when you say, are we talking, what other people did we assign areas to for their salaries?
I think in general government, this is mainly.
In general government, we remove one employee, which is Sherry, because she has nothing to do with the general government portion. She is utility.
She's all
And
water,
we
sewer,
put her 100% in the enterprise department. So she was removed from this district. The other issue is too that even though these figures are here, they weren't being distributed correctly. And my aim was to, based on the employees that are here and projecting that they will be here by the end of next year, or if that employee is replaced at that exact rate, then that would be the true figure that will be coming out of the general government funds. And it's at 40%, which is me, right now, it is Mary and I, and it's, you know, based on our salary and at a 40% distribution.
Have we had a general government line before? And who's in that? Say again, who makes up, what people make up general government? You and Mary?
Yes.
Okay,
Which is
I didn't hear
finance.
that, okay. Two. Okay, I'm with you.
And I'm curious to figure out the professional services side, that's $130,000. What the 2019, again, when you look at 18 and 19, there's a huge jump. And then I'm looking to figure out where we spent that money to make sure that we should be adopting it for this year. So again, there's some of this is, we're getting things on the board so that we can look at them and figure out where they're from and what they're for.
Well, if you don't mind me
Yeah.
speaking,
Certainly.
you know, because of the Hurricane Michael, there's, you know, based on 2018 and previously, you know, there's not a lot of fees incurred in those years, but based on Hurricane Michael coming in, there is like engineering and all these things that are associated in that amount, and contract workers. For example, he's a part of this amount too, so that's why I use that to budget at 130 based on engineering costs or, you know, whatever professional fees, and keep wage for the year. So that's part of it.
But as we also figure out the engineering fee, if it's allocated to a Sunset Park, then we can put it in that Hurricane Michael Sunset Park, so it's not floating within the general fund, but actually gets allocated to the right location. So some of this is, again, we've thrown everything into this one category for the last year. Once we get it figured out, we will allocate these things into the right location.
One of them that catches my eyes is general government is the uniform. who wears uniforms with Mary and, what did you say was in this? The third, fourth one up from the bottom and,
It shows $1,000 and I have no idea.
I don't know.
That can be removed.
Well, I'm just saying, fine, I know we got to go through it, but some, I mean, the fuel and the lubricants and the two people is,
Again, keep in mind, we're building this budget for the first time.
and that's why I really hate to ask the question, because it's something that we've tried to start, and we really, but I don't want, to me, and this, and looking at these, it's a whole lot different than it was, and I know you explained that to us, and it's really confusing to me. But it's like a government, if we go ahead and allocate this much money, somehow or another, we think we have to spend that much money. And I don't wanna get something over here, especially the professional services. But like, we in the trial, this will be the first time we can make.
Follow up, with that. Is today's meeting to give us our first look at the layout and what would, or do you,
Yes, sir.
do you think we're premature, which I do, I think we are, to start looking at the line items to start asking questions about?
I don't think we're ready to start line items. I wanted to get in front of you the overall concept that
Okay,
we are divvying some things up a little differently, we're allocating
okay,
a little bit better, and we're trying to create something that gives us a way to track what we're actually doing, because in the past,
I'm good with that,
funds
I
were
just
being
wanna make
paid
sure
and
that,
nobody was tracking it to a budget.
For me, to understand it, it would be really good if you kind of give us a paper that says, here's what, the way we used to do it, here's how we're changing it, here's how we're splitting it up, so that we have something to go by that, rather than just hearing you and trying to remember it, so that as we're going through these figures and stuff, does that make sense for you to give us kind of a document that says, here's what it used to be, and here's how we're doing it now, and this is why it's changed, and I'm 40%, 20%, 20%, you know, those kinds of things?
We could break it up to that level, most certainly. It's just giving the big overview is all I was trying to get to in this particular meeting. Again, when we get to fire, you'll notice that our salaries are pretty much tracking the same. Monique? On fire,
Oh. Yeah.
salaries.
I'm sorry.
Come on, unique thing.
You know what, I'm kind of still hung up on, the last comment, because, you know, there is, I don't know the best way to put this thought that I have in my head. You know, basically taking this job and assigning this position in the books is basically, how can I put it,
Non-existent.
right.
Literal.
Like a house went through Hurricane Michael, you know, there's nothing where it said it's supposed to be. A lot of these things, one of the biggest issue we have is things are in accounts and GL that they don't belong to. And we have to be cleaning up everything, we have to be reclassifying all these accounts. You know, going further into the budget, you guys gonna see, you know, current payables, like there are just stuff in there that didn't belong. Now, you know, a budget is a basic tracking tool, and my initial thought is to go ahead and implement something that we can follow through, because in my personal opinion, the previous year, we just cannot go based on what was being done, because it's like somebody taking stuff and throwing it on the wall and see what sticks. And that's just what I want to
So are we gonna ever know?
ever know what.
What performed the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Probably not 100%. We will have audits for those 2 years.
Once we get the audit done,
But again, when you look at this and you see how there's 15 different numbers over here on the far right-hand
Mhm.
side. We shouldn't pay any checks to anything without it having that number tracking it. So, Dewberry's check should have a 001-522-3100 for fire if they did something there. What I can tell you has happened in the past was Dewberry was just paid.
And we don't know where,
And when that happened.
and we don't know what they were paid for what, really.
No, not really. So, and when it happens for 2 years, the idea of taking all these receipts that are just in a pile and trying to allocate them when you don't really know, again, it was a receipt for this, but if it was for Sunset Park, that's actually a hurricane project. If it was for something that Thomas needed to fix something, then it would go to Thomas's either water department or sewer department. It was just going to Thomas, and I don't know that it was going to water, to sewer, or to Tommy. There's just so many unknowns with that past budget that Monique is working with the two department heads and tracking back to their best capabilities of what they've spent in the last couple of years. And again, when Philip was here, he bundled everything up like it was one department. And when he paid for fuel, he just paid for fuel. Versus if it was Tommy's crew that's in Parks and Rec and there's a fuel number in this budget, then it should have gone to Parks and Rec. But if it was supposed to go to Storm that day, or if he has a split, that's the level of detail that we should have in order to have this work as a real tool. And until this tool is actually implemented and followed, it's really hard to go backwards to when it wasn't being done. So we have had a meeting with all department heads. They have been shown this document that now, tracks everything from engineering to accounting to travel to communication to utilities to rentals to insurance, blah, 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 blah. It all has a number that every single thing that you buy, if it's a piece of rope, was it for the park? Was it for the dredge? What did it go to? And then it tracks with this number. Once you exceed this $13,000 number, Mary's system is locked. Again, once this budget is adopted, it's fed into the accounting system. Mary will write checks to code 001524444. If there's money there, she can make that payment. If she's exceeded that money, it's gonna come to a dead stop, and it's gonna go back over to Monique, and Monique's gonna come to me and say, we've exceeded our fuel cost. Do we have enough money someplace else, or what do we do? Again, a budget is designed to have something to track to. It hasn't been tracked. We've got to start fresh and start tracking October 1st. So our goal is to get as close to what we think is the right budget. And again, that's why she's gone back to pre-hurricane and probably even some of Debbie's old numbers, which was our last strong accountant that the city had. We're using her numbers a lot more weighted than we are the second two sets of numbers, because we just don't have the confidence in those. So this is a major change to what the city has done in the past, but we're reaching back to where we can actually truly track the budget.
Maura, to follow up on it, I don't see anything to be gained to try to reconstruct since the storm. I don't see anything of value when we went to pool cash that's going to, I think I like the concept of we're going to start from scratch. Even though it's not scratch, in the big picture, it's really what it is. And set up a system that you and Monique have confidence in, that we can keep up with what we're doing, and that the guys in the field will know they better code this, they better code that, and I'm gonna try to simplify, but we had that at one time.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna try to follow along with the categories and not get caught up in what the number is out there right now until we come back, say in our third meeting or whenever so that you can refine. For me, I think the numbers won't mean a lot right now, other than that you sort of look back and try to gather some information and put in the best number that you think is there. And sort of to hit back with what Darryl was talking about, Darryl, I think you're gonna have to, under the ideal condition of looking at what we had versus what we're doing, you're gonna have to have some imagination. Maybe that's the best way I know to say that. If we can sort of have to make light of that, but we have had some awful tracking in the past 2 years because there really hasn't been any, quite frankly. I didn't realize it was as off track as it was, but, so I'm gonna try to follow your, technique, and then I'll have maybe questions about the line items when we get to that point. Is that sort of for us,
I
some of these
believe-
folks hadn't sat in on budgets before, so I can understand I can understand, especially Sharon and Darryl, it's being a little more creative.
So we recently implemented that all the invoices comes to the account department so that we can verify coding. We also issue a chart of account to all the department heads, and we advise them that they should do the coding and not their, employees. Now, that's just the first defense. The second is it goes to Mary. Mary checks it and she brings it to me. So we have 3 defense systems that we put up to ensure that things are being coded to the right place and the right chart of account. I also created a chart of account list that, and I gave it to all the department heads. It basically give them a guidance as to what goes where in which account. For example, if it's office supply, stickers, pens, pencil, it gives it a description that these items goes to this chart of account. So we actually implemented that. As far as the employee, what we did is I had a meeting with the department head, especially Thomas and Tommy, and I asked them, like, how do these employees, work? Like, for example, it's 50% through sanitation, 50% water. They give me that breakdown. Starting October 1st, I will be going into the system to make sure that if one of Thomas' guy is 40% water, 40% sewer, 20% sanitation, his payroll distribution is as such. And when I talk about payroll distribution, I'm talking about the health insurance, the retirement, all that. Because technically, my aim is to rebuild everything and make sure that everything is flowing. And the first thing you have to do is make sure that the information that is in the system is correct. Because if we put misguided information in the system, that's exactly what the system is going to send back out to us. So that's something that we had a meeting and we discussed, and starting as October 1st, we're trying to get everything in play, and it should follow through with the budget and the numbers that we're putting out there.
I like it.
I do too. I think that, I'm now sort of, cause I don't believe I could really follow it. And if I look at these papers, if you look down
There
through
you
it,
go, it's gonna, in their defense, we're sitting here, or I find myself saying,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute, well, Lord, they just tried to sort of mold it and
Yes.
construct it and get it
No.
in a massaged manner to present, and if I'm not careful, I'll get too
That's
detailed.
right.
And
So I'm sorry, anyway, I think y'all, I believe you can do it.
I know I can do it.
I know you can. So, I'm not gonna sit here and go through, I'm not, because it's confusing and I don't know nothing about it anyway.
And I totally get it on you guys' side, you know, you're looking at numbers, like, what are these numbers?
Yeah.
You know,
I have no
just
clue.
to let you guys know too, like, these are not numbers that I'm throwing out there, like, not all of the numbers. For example, the personnel cost, I make sure I went through, I contacted the insurance company, I contacted the workers' comp, the health insurance, just to get an idea of what our rates is gonna be like for 2021. And that's exactly what I got, and that's exactly what I plugged in. I don't like guessing.
Right.
You know, there's a situation that you have to make an educated guess, but I'm not someone that just sit down and guess. I try to keep the number as close as possible. And of course, I may not get it there at 100%, but my aim is to get it there between 90 to 100%.
well, good job.
Good job.
Let me ask a question. When you, on the salaries,
Uh-huh.
what is incorporated? I mean, I think, Mario, let me back up. I think I can speak broadly but I don't see any reason, once you do one or two of these, the rest of them are all sort of, they have the same, the salaries, the insurance, the workers' comp, then you just get down to supplies and fuel and, you know, I mean, there's no fluff, if you would. We don't have anywhere to fluff. These guys, the public works people know what kind of thing, what they need to run their department for a year. What did we do with salaries? Did we incorporate, are these numbers indicative of a percentage raise?
Good question.
Yeah.
What Monique did was, she went out to the state of Florida and researched what is the cost of living increase for our exact city. And, you know, you can look at it for the United States, you can southeast Florida, and then you can go all the way down to Mexico Beach. She did that study for Mexico Beach, and what she has incorporated within the salaries is the cost of living increase. She did not go above the cost of living increase.
Is that the
and-
FICA?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's 2%.
2%. So she did a cost of living increase for 2%.
Across the board?
Across the board to everyone.
Okay.
Now, if there is flexibility to provide up to a 3% performance evaluation type increase, I think the employees would appreciate something like that because they've gone through a lot over the storm and all the work that goes on here. So please consider 3% for performance evaluation. And the way that I would propose that the department heads issue that is, not everybody would get 3% across the board. There would be some people that would not get any, and then there would be some people that might get a little more than 3%, but the total budget that they would have to work with would be 3% for their department to allocate, if y'all would consider that,
That's above the 2%.
above the 2%. I would hope that we could give the 2% because that's just cost of living. That's not a raise, that's just dealing with inflation.
Well, I think that's something we ought to discuss because that's gonna affect the budget.
Most certainly.
And
2% is implemented in these figures, the salary numbers that you guys are looking at, is what I did, I created a spreadsheet, and I have what we currently make, and I have another tab that shows a 2% increase, and that's what's reflected here, just so you guys know.
And that tracks all the way through because that affects retirement, that affects
Sure.
all the other categories.
well, I know after the storm, the council gave, in our financial state, we gave employees, I believe it was 3%. Correct? Bobby, y'all agree?
No.
I don't know if you're talking about a performance in addition to the 2% cost of living.
Yes, sir.
That's not across the board.
Yeah, that would not be across the board, that would be based on the department head's discretion.
Or is it appropriate that we go ahead and try to give you some direction there?
Yes, sir, if you would, that
Oh,
would be.
because
that would be helpful.
that affects a lot of numbers.
And to give you an idea of budgetary, what a 3% equals to the
Yeah.
total budget, it's approximately $50,000 to $60,000, so it's a number, but it's not.
That's if you gave everybody.
Again, keep in mind, that would be a budget number, and then if this department chose to give it to 4 out of the 5, then these 4 would get the money that the 5th one didn't get because he wasn't performing. So it gives them a budget number to work off. Or they could just give it across the board to all 5 of them, but that's not the basis of the true performance evaluation, is that you're giving more money to the people that are pushing more shovels or.
I believe in true performance. I agree again with the, just cost of living at 2%.
Two.
But if somebody's doing a superb job, they ought to get paid for it.
Well, we gotta decide what to give them as a, if I understand right, the 2% is incorporated.
Yes, sir.
You're saying an additional 3 or an additional 1%?
An additional 3.
On job performance.
For
Job
performance.
Well, here's my experience. When you have a small staff, and you start separating them by performance, one of 2 things. Get rid of those that aren't performing, or they all deserve it. Now, that's just, I mean, if you've got some where when you have as few people as we have, and they work as close as they work, and you got somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, that would make a difference in getting a 2% or a 5% raise, I see inherent problems in itself in doing that. I'm more inclined, even though I strongly believe in performance, but I don't know if paying our guys a 3% performance raise over somebody else isn't gonna cause another problem. I'm more inclined to give a 3% across the board raise. Who evaluates that? You, Mario? Who makes that decision?
Again, typically the way that I've done it in the past was the department head does the evaluation, the department head clears it with myself, and then it would go through.
I'm just not for that.
Well, going back to what Al just said, of course, I can't judge every single employee. We got great employees. I do agree with, if you're not doing your job, get rid of it.
Well, when you're small, it don't take, I mean,
Across the board, they fine, man.
I say across the board, I say what Monique says too, I say 2%. I think that's enough. With our finances where we are, I think 2% is, I sure don't think 5 is.
So, you were saying we gave a 3%?
we did after the storm. It was, I mean, it was debated and debated and debated. And we felt like the employees answered the bell, and we, even in our, I mean, obviously you saw after the storm, our revenues just went, went to nothing. But we thought it was the right thing to do. And I think, what did we do last year?
It was just 3%.
3%? Okay, it was across the board, wasn't
Right.
it? Okay.
So we
So,
gave,
and
we gave
what
them,
we're saying now is 2%, cost of living increase, 3% across the board raise, 5% total.
Yeah, I'm not, that's just, to me, that's not feasible for our financial condition. Jerry said 2,
Two.
I was saying 3 instead of a 2. I guess you could say a 1% incentive raise to everyone, if you want to look at it that way, but, I understand, our money situation is tight, but I guess I see value in our employees and trying to show our appreciation. So anyway, we got 2 different numbers right now. What got?
and you said after the storm, actually, kind of a real date. When was that? How long ago?
Well, our
did
budget had just hit, remember, October 10th, the storm hit, we adopted the budget on October 1st.
Okay, so, and that's when we gave them.
Well, we had already implemented, but then.
Yeah. It was the fall.
Following year, yeah, when we, October of
Last year.
last year, we implemented a 3% raise in some chaotic financial conditions that Monique has made reference to in terms of trying to now separate out, but
So we covered the 2% cost of living, plus we gave another 1%.
And-
Essentially.
And last year's cost of living, because I was someplace else, was 2%.
2%, yeah.
This is just a flat 3%, there's no cost of living faults or anything else.
And this October, we're gonna do the same. We're gotta do the cost of living plus whatever we deem
We don't have to do
necessary.
anything.
You don't have to do anything.
Right, I understand.
We're proposing to at least cover the cost of living and then some increase, but it's up to y'all.
It's already figured in at two.
Yeah,
Yeah, these numbers reflect too.
The two.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the two.
Well, I think they deserve more than just cost of living. That's just my thought.
And I suggested 3.
so when do we have to, for sure, make this decision?
The sooner you make it, the better it is for her, because it has a major effect on the total budget.
And you're
To give you
saying,
an idea, salary-wise,
yeah,
strictly salary, the city spends, $2.3 million in salaries.
2.3
That's-
million.
That's workman's comp, that's health insurance, that's retirement taxes, overtime, every component of it, the city's budget for water, sewer, street, storm, the whole of the city, it spends biggest line item in
Sure.
our budget.
So the benefits is about what percentage of that?
So somewhere in the 20 to 30% is what the benefits are.
Benefits.
So we could take a salary and, on somebody, we could compute how much 2% and 3% or 5% or whatever is.
I think 5% is a very large increase across the board. If it was for everyone. You know, the 2 and the 3, I think that's just too much.
Well, you know, I've never got a cost of living unless I made a cost of living. You know, I've always been employed for myself, so, you know, there's a lot of weeks that I went home and my guys got paid and I had to take money out of my pocket to pay stuff. But that's not how these guys work. These guys didn't have the ability like me to change their prices. You know, they lost that one job. Shame on them if they did it again. Speaking of someone like myself, they don't have that ability. And for me to really say yes or no, you know, I really kind of, you know, I mean, give me a salary per year of just whoever it might be, and tell me what that means in dollars.
So let's say a $30,000 salary
Okay,
plus 3%. 3% is an extra $900 for the whole year.
3% is an extra $900 for the whole year. Okay,
For a
and
person making 30,000.
and go ahead and do 5 for me while you're there.
30,000 plus 5%, that's $1,500.
Okay, and the 2% would be while we're there.
600.
600. Okay. Well, seeing as how we're really spending money we don't even have anyhow, right?
Well,
Considering.
Yeah,
that,
we
yeah,
have,
we're
we're
gonna
gonna have,
We're gonna have
we're gonna
income.
have some money.
keeping in mind that this staff has worked pre-storm where they were working $6 million worth of stuff a year, general purposes. When they're building a new marina, when they're redoing all the water, redoing all the sewer, redoing all the roads, redoing the canal, all of those things are extra work that at the end of the day, it's staff that's doing this, you know, I'm helping facilitate the monies to come in. We will be reimbursed on a lot of those dollars to the tune of 51 million extra dollars that has been spent over the last 21 months. It's been this staff that is maybe not, well, even on the dredging side, I mean, you guys had to interact on the dredging side of the world. You guys have dealt with the extra people that are here cleaning up. So when there's $51 million worth of extra activities that happen within the city, staff is the one that sees it. I can tell you that Mary has processed $51 million worth of checks, where she normally would have processed $5 million worth of checks. And Mary has done a great job. Monique is now taking over these type things. The city clerk is dealing with a lot more projects because now we are doing a Dewberry contract for a jetty that we didn't have in the past. Now we are doing a Dewberry project for Sunset Park that we didn't have in the past. Staff does do more work through the grants that are coming in. And there are monies that come in through FEMA to pay for things, and there's a 5% for administrative costs. So these monies are getting covered in that sense, but at the end of the day, we have to have a match. So it's still money that we still have to come out of pocket at some point.
And some staff is different than, say, Tommy and Thomas's staff, where Tommy and Thomas's staff, they're not salaried, so they're paid for how many hours they work that week, and I'm assuming, what do you guys get, time and a half for overtime?
Yeah.
Okay, so they actually, for their extra work, made extra money if it took them extra hours at a time and a half. Whereas, say Lindsay did it, in essence, she's doing more work for the same money. She doesn't get overtime. So, I mean,
Yeah,
for
no,
me
yeah.
as a business guy, that's what I think about,
Keep in
and
mind,
my people.
I generally ask them not to do overtime. So the goal is for us to perform things within the normal business hours, if at all possible, to save the city money. And not only to save the city money, but when if workforce starts to put in more than about 48 to 50 hours, they tend to hurt themselves on that 70th hour because we're working too hard. Every once in a while, not a big deal, but if all of a sudden all the staff is working 60-hour work weeks to keep up with things, it's too much burden for any one place.
Well, which is why when you start paying,
It costs the city a lot more money.
when you,
It's 60
well, when you start working a lot of extra overtime, what that tells you is that you're short-staffed.
Mhm.
And so rather than pay everybody time and a half, you hire another person to carry that load, but you gotta, you know, I'm just trying, look, listen, there's nobody I think that deserves raise more than these guys. I even think us councilmen, I mean, I'd like to get 5% on my $13 a day. And it's different, cause we, you know, just like when I came in here, I said, you know, do I have to take the money? You know, I ain't
What are
buying
you
it.
gonna do about the rates, 2 or 3%?
Whoa.
Let's try to get us back.
I'm
to
just trying to
something.
understand, but you know, don't,
Okay, I
I mean,
got one thing to say on that.
I don't like being hurried up when I'm trying to make a decision that's affecting their lives,
Okay,
and
well, I just,
I'm, you know, you guys have been through budgets, and I'm trying to
I'm
clarify.
not trying to rush, I'm trying to keep us on stay focused on what we.
Well, everything that I'm mentioning, it has something to do with my decision about what I'm gonna do about how much that money they make. So you know, I don't really like being told to hurry up when I'm trying to make clear here. This is my first budget meeting for a city government, and I'm trying to make the
I
right
understand
decision,
that.
Al.
If you took that as hurrying you up, I apologize. You're entitled to do and ask. Sometimes I like to try to keep it focused on what it is we're trying to decide, but you go ahead.
Go ahead and tell me what you're trying to say.
All I was gonna say, you got somebody that's really doing a very good job.
I understand.
I feel like most of our people are.
Yes, I agree.
To tell them that you're not worth more than $600 a year more,
Yeah.
that's not me. I'm sorry. And I've worked people my whole life.
Mhm.
And again, I go to job performance more because if somebody does a better job, I like to pay more.
I agree with that.
But at the same time, I feel like most of our people do a great job. And they work more than 2%. So,
We're about through. How do you feel about 3%?
I'm through.
3's better than 2. I prefer a little more, but, I mean, I definitely think they need to be rewarded for the job they've been doing. Even though they do get paid, I still feel like they need to
I
be
think
rewarded.
they've all done a great job. I commend every one of them. Every one of them.
You go out there in the middle of the night, you having to dig a hole with the water leaks or
Well, I'd have
whatever, anything like that.
I'd have to agree to at least 3%. I mean, I would feel very bad not to at least give 3%. That's only 1% above the cost of living. And I wish we were in better shape. I wish the city was in better shape. I wish we had the ability to give them more. I think that the situation that we're in, I think that everybody here, you know, this is when the team pulls together and says, you know what, if we had a bunch of money, it'd be one thing if they weren't giving us a little bit of that because we're doing so well. But when we're struggling so bad, you know, I think 3% is a bare minimum that we can give them. And, yeah.
Okay. So, we're gonna have a 3% across the board? Is that what I'm hearing? Jerry, I know you're 2, but I mean, you're outnumbered in this.
I'm a ship sinking, I'm going with 3.
All right, raise your say. While we're on salaries, I wanna bring up Mario's salary, when he hired on, and I really think that the insurance that we save, I would like to suggest that we add that $600 a month, which is $7,200 a year, to his salary. I think he is very deserving, and I just feel like that if we're gonna have people we're gonna have to pay them to perform. And I don't think that's out of line, and I believe the city should do that. That's my suggestion on the administrator's salary.
Well, if he didn't pay for his insurance, we would be paying for his insurance, they're equal about the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting the benefit from his retirement, but I think it's justifiable to put that money toward his salary.
Can we find $572 somewhere to pay? Can
Is there?
we? I agree, let's pay him.
Are we
Everything's
good?
going through her.
Mark, I mean, y'all speak up, I don't,
No, I'm fine.
I don't wanna rush anybody
Yeah,
there.
I'm
I
sorry.
say that with levity. I say that with levity. All right, so Monique, if you would add that to the, how you distribute, I'm not gonna get into that, but you can take care of that. All right, now, as far as the rest of the line items, so that we don't get more information than we can process, Mario, what is the best way moving forward? We took care of the employees, so those numbers are gonna go across and filter down. And then when you get into what other areas do we really need to focus on for this meeting?
I guess for more than anything else, if each one of you would truly, and it's gonna take a magnifying glass to read this, or we can print it for you on 11 by 17, where you can read it better. If y'all will look at it, and again, just a solid cross-check on what Monique and Keith and I are doing, and keeping in mind that there is input from Tommy and Thomas and Sandy on their departments. But again, you know, when you get to the water department, you know, we're looking at revenues for this year versus the years past, and you can see our logic from year to year to year. We are looking, you know, what was adopted for the water was only $689,000. What we're proposing is $1.1 million. Again, these are projections, and they're not guesses. I mean, they have some backing behind them. You know, Thomas has looked at how much water we've spent to date, but we still have our 2 biggest months left of the year, so he's making some projections. But again, this is staff really and truly building a budget for the first time, and having 5 extra eyes really and truly is helpful. So again, just having this out here as a draft for y'all to digest a little bit more, and for the next meeting, you know, we hope to have some of the FEMA monies starting to come in and divvying those things up. So we're gonna continue to add to this budget, but just getting you involved in it and having that overview, to understand where and what to look for, I think is helpful.
Well, let me ask you on the general fund budget, I didn't go through every department, but I did look at, like, you know, the parks and recs, and I don't see any proposed capital purchases. Did I miss them?
Road department, canal department, water and sewer, the only ones with capital. Yep. Under general fund, the only ones you have is canal and road.
What's the canal wanting to buy?
We're trying to repurchase a new backhoe after it was destroyed by Hurricane Michael.
I knew what?
Backhoe, we used to have 2 cat backhoes, we only have 1 now. 4 departments are having a share. Canal's, we propose a canal, and
Yeah, but that's a FEMA purchase.
it's supposed to be through insurance, and I haven't heard anyway, so we went ahead and proposed for it, so we can at least try to, if FEMA money does come
And
in.
Mayor, if we received insurance money for it, then he should be purchasing it in the next year's budget. It's allocated through, insurance funds.
Do we have, what is in our insurance fund?
That's part of what we're still getting our own.
So we don't know what we got in the insurance fund.
What department was that again?
Road department, canal, water and sewer.
Water and sewer enterprise fund, so I don't wanna deal with, I wanna deal with
And
general
then it'll be
fund.
just road and canal.
I missed that. I
When you
missed
look
that.
At the very bottom.
Yeah, road and street,
Please.
that's 46,875.
I just wanna look to see how that's line item. Expense for park,
It's under machinery and equipment.
canal, all right, I'm at the canal. Roads and streets, okay, roads and streets,
Mhm.
capital, okay.
So
But you
line
don't, there you do
6400,
46,875 for machinery and equipment, what is that 48,875?
That's 35.5% of the $125,000 for a new backhoe, that's split between 4 departments. Each one department don't pay full cost, it's split, but based on how much each department uses it, it's split between the departments. So basically, canal and road would be paying basically 70% of the cost of the trees and sewer. And the other 30% of the water sewer.
All right, is there anything on the revenue side that's gonna offset that? In terms of,
That's where
is that
the-
one of the
that's where
things
the
you're waiting
insurance-
to see how the FEMA thing shakes out, so we'll know?
Between FEMA and insurance, that it should cover the cost of that.
So that
backhoe.
may end, that's gonna end up not being ad valorem millage rate money.
Correct. That is correct.
Is that the case for all the capital improvements? Or all the capital proposed?
On the only general fund, that's the only capital improvement we have, the only other one, like I said, is water and sewer. So, other than that, that's it. Water and sewer, we do have a backhoe and a new pickup truck, that's it, for water and sewer, and sanitation.
Okay,
So for
now,
general fund, that's it for capital, for our departments.
okay. Now what about on water? You were mentioning, Mara, does that mean that you're looking at a rate increase?
No, sir.
Or when you said it was $1 million on water,
That's based on 2,000 active connections that we project to have this next coming year, based on the current rates that we currently have. Right now, we're sitting right at 1,500 connections. We easily gonna add 500 connections within the next year because we got 4 major condos that are offline still. We have Farmdale, Sugar Sands, whatever you wanna call it, that's 65 more connections plus irrigation.
okay.
So it's gonna come back pretty quick.
So,
And I would also, I will venture to say that the 2020 adopted of 689 is gonna be a different number than 689.
yeah,
We won't know that until
don't know
the end of
that.
September.
Yeah, we actually did these calculations, me and the sheriff sat down, we actually went back to 17, 18, looked at actual versus how much revenue actually came in, and that's where we come up with a baseline and figure how many based on connections we had. That's where we come up with this number. So,
So based on early projections in water, sewer, and sanitation, no one is suggesting that we need to raise the
the
rate.
only rate increase that I see for water, sewer, sanitation in Bay County is raising the per 1,000 gallon rate by 11 cents, it's going from 275 to 2.
Well, we've always done the,
So other than that,
we've
there's
always
no
done that.
proposed rate increase at all.
Yeah, we'll mirror that, because that's a pass.
Right, that's a pass.
But that's the only proposed increases
Okay.
we see, everything else based on the actual cost we're doing now already for water, sewer, sanitation.
What is the projected audited numbers? Or do we even have a projected for the audited numbers?
We, for 2019,
Yes,
so as far as the expense or the revenue?
no, well, when do we expect to have the audit?
Okay, so the auditors are scheduled to come in on the 24th, and, you know, it's, an audit typically takes 3 months, we'll see how this one goes. You know, but, we're doing a lot of cleaning up for 2019, we have a list, and we diving down through that list, you know, just to address your question, you had a question, how much money we receive from insurance. If you look at the revenue portion in that miscellaneous revenue, you see in the highlighted area, there's a $527,000.
Where are you at, Miss Monique?
On the second page, the second revenue page.
Very front.
Second
Okay.
revenue page right here.
Okay, so look where?
If you see that first miscellaneous revenue.
Yes, ma'am.
0013609. Typically, miscellaneous revenue should not be that big. Basically, there was a cost coming, and part of that cost was insurance, and it was misplaced in the wrong revenue. And, you know, if we, as I said before, we're working like really hard to clean up the books, you know, and try to get everything looking. We're not gonna get it perfect for the auditors to come in, but a big issue you know, we can't even reference to the 2018 audit because those numbers are not exactly correct either. So, yeah, about 3 months, we should be able to give you guys actual figures for, 2019. And once the 2019 audit is done, we jump in right into 2020 audit.
To give you another large order number, we received $1 million for the water tower. That money just went into pool cash. It actually needs to go into the water department so that it shows that $1 million came into the water department to help pay for all the other activities that have happened here in the water department. We replaced how many pumps? And
Oh, I got replaced the contract, but what we're talking about doing next is that what you're talking about.
so again, once we allocate these funds into the right places, then we will actually know we've got this money to actually reinvest within that category. Because I can't reinvest the $1 million from the water department into the general fund, it has to stay in that water department, same for the sewer and so on and so on.
And we don't just, I don't like to throw numbers out there at you guys. Like, if you guys ask me something, I want to be able to give you guys the right number and not just, you know, guessing or telling you when it's here, when it's not there. So, you know, a big issue for us, why we haven't been throwing numbers out there is because we're trying to get everything clean up. And, you know, just.
Let me ask you, have you ever seen any documents that show what the insurance company, what I call a cover sheet that says, that identifies a certain car, we got so much money, or water tank, we got so much money, or, I mean, something that gives a breakdown of what the insurance company paid?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Keith has something like that. Don't quote me on that, let me double check.
printed out.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
okay, so good, yeah.
I printed out,
We do?
I printed out the sheets from, the general fund for the insurance proceeds.
Okay, and it's broken out. It identifies what they paid by item.
It just went into insurance proceeds, but in the description, I can print out what went for
Okay,
individual, and then I've got all the.
so we do
lines.
have that.
Yeah,
I asked for that months ago, I wondered whatever,
yeah, I gave it to Keith, and he was working on it.
okay. I wanted to see just what they paid. So does that 500, never mind. I'm not even gonna ask that question. Never mind. I know the answer for action. You don't know, and I don't either, so I'm not gonna ask you. All right, Mario, I'm just, if you think you need to give us,
We touched on the water, we touched on the sewer since we have some capital projects going on. And understand that as the FEMA monies come in, we are gonna have capital projects within each one of these departments. I mean, MX1, for all intents and purposes, should have been a sewer project, but it doesn't track that way. It should have tracked that way, it has to track that way retroactively, because at the end of the day, once it's in that department, then we have to depreciate those pumps and know when we're gonna have to replace them. So, again, creating this map means that we start putting things in the right place on the map from this point forward. Unfortunately, we've never put them in the right place for a little while, so we're catching up. Monique and staff are all focused on getting it in the right place so that we can build a budget that we can track for the future, and we can all be proud that we've spent the money in the right place, and that when we get our audit next year, we can show them exactly where everything went through. And I know that she's gonna have one heck of a time, because, again, that MX1 that was in last year's budget, that she's doing budget for, she's gonna have to have that all corralled up in order to get that audit approved. So there's a lot of work that she has to do on the audit side, let alone on the budget side, but
I've got total faith in her.
Me too. Me too.
And thank all of you for
Yeah.
wanting to get it right. It's easy to stay
Right.
in this, that would be the easy thing. Just keep it muddied up and muddled up, but you take the initiative and you got the drive to wanna get it right, and for that, it's not much, but thank you. The accounting part of this, we all know is critical to our survival. We just have to have, and FEMA's gonna require that. I mean, we're kidding ourselves to think that they're gonna give us all this money and not wanna know.
Oh, the audit side of FEMA is gonna be,
And so, we may as well just, I mean, it's awkward for, and I've been doing it a long time, and it's awkward for me, so I can imagine when you don't deal with it routinely. Municipal accounting is beyond something that I fully understand, and that's why we have good people that do understand. So thank you all. So how do we proceed with our meetings? Are we just gonna stay on our next regular meeting and
if
then
we
have?
can just do, you know, hopefully it won't take as long as
Right.
our last meeting.
We'll get better at it.
But now that you've had a chance to be exposed to it, look through it, please feel free to come to me and meet. Feel free to come and meet with Monique, get an understanding of it, and with each meeting, my hope is 3 or 4 meetings from now, everybody actually understands what we're talking about and what we're going through, so that on the 4th meeting, we all feel comfortable about saying,
Well, you know,
we're gonna adopt this thing, so we have to
yeah,
adopt
we
this.
got deadlines,
by the
so
end of September.
don't let us lose track of
Yes, sir.
that. Not that you will, but. Okay, then, do we have any other questions? I think we've
Just,
got,
I got two,
go ahead.
3 actually. And I think I know the answer, but I wanna confirm. On the fire and, emergency service, fire and emergency services,
Yeah,
we went from 27, 42, 94 to 290, 299, 296. That's because we went from a volunteer fire department to a paid fire department? Okay. All right, which is what I thought, just checking. And on the police, on the next page, there's no coding, because we don't code, because we just give the money to
Correct.
them
That's
straight to
just
Bay
a straight
County.
fee. Yeah.
And so it went from the 330s to now 642 for 21 proposed.
Look down at the bottom, I don't,
Okay, so,
I look at those bottom numbers to make a comparison.
okay, so we're going down with the sheriff's department over what we were?
Compared to what you had in 19 and 20, yes, sir.
Based on their contract, that's what they're charging, the 642.
we had $100,000 upfront, one-time charge.
Is that included in this 642?
It should be.
No, that was in the 836.
Yeah, that was the 836.
That's right.
For last year.
Okay,
For the transition, it was granted for the transition.
That's right.
okay,
One time.
okay, all right. That's my questions.
But again, without going through this, you wouldn't know where to look, so that, again, with each one of these, we'll have a little bit better understanding.
Okay. Monique, I get to go first. I'll see you soon. I just need a slight brief education, okay? And I'll promise not to be a real pain. And when I've got all I can comprehend, I will leave.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
won't be long.
In 5 minutes.
Yeah, it
I'll be
won't
right
take long.
behind you. If you'd like to do both of us together, if you can, we can make it simple.
It doesn't matter to me.
Cannot do both of you together, thank you very much.
I figured that.
So the next budget meeting will be after the next regular meeting.
Meeting. Okay, Monique, we're good? You got anything else? No? Mario, you good?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank everyone for coming. Do we have a call today, conference call
We missed
today?
it. Yes,
I thought it was. What time?
it was at 1, and he did text.
Oh, hell, it's 1:30.
We done missed lunch. Look like we were furnished.
Where's the pizza? Who brings
Yeah,
the
who bring
pizza?
the pizza?
Better call Hector.